The other two don't really remember a whole lot. Kallye was kind of the overseer of the three in while we were in addiction. February the 11th, Crystal and I will be 19 years saved and delivered. And I'm going to tell you something. They were singing that song about freedom a while ago. And the Bible says in John 8:36, to whom the Son has made free is free indeed. And I believe that with everything that I have in me. And I believe that there is people out there today that we could go talk to, and they could tell you that they have probably never had another drink, that they've never done any more drugs, that they've never done any of that. But I'm going to tell you something. The thing that I've learned is you may quit that and you may never touch it again. But without Jesus Christ, you don't never have the true peace. See, there's one thing that you're missing. You're missing the peace. Isaiah said he was wonderful counselor, Prince of Peace. He was the mighty God. He's everything that you need. And I am absolutely set that there is people out there that can quit. They can come out of addiction and possibly never touch it again. But do they really have the peace of God on the inside of them? Because let me tell you something. Here's what I've learned while we were in addiction. There wasn't any 19 years ago, you didn't come to meetings like this. There wasn't no such thing as meetings like this. There wasn't hardly any meetings. I never went to a meeting. I had no idea what they were even like. I never walked into an AA, NA meeting or anything. But I will tell you this, that they have talked about sponsors. Personally, I've never sponsored anybody, but I did have a sponsor, but I never went to a meeting. I told the recovery today on the Facebook that my sponsor was the Holy Ghost. He sponsored me, and because when I got saved and delivered, God absolutely changed my complete life. I never had another want. I was 14 years in a drug addiction and alcohol, and a lot of people they'll come out of the drug addiction part. They may not never take another shot. They may never snort another line or take another pill or anything like that. But then they think that it's okay for alcohol. I'm going to tell you something. Alcohol was just as bad as the other for me. It destroyed my life. It destroyed my family. It made a complete monster out of me, because when I was drunk, when I was high, and even when I didn't have it, I was the kind of person that I was very verbally abusive. I was very mentally abusive, and I was very physically abusive. My wife was the one that caught most of the repercussion of all three of those. I've been in jail for abuse for her. I have been in jail for alcohol. We've been in jail for all kinds of different things that we faced, that we went through. And I want you to know this, that Kallye, and she's going to share her story in just a minute. There's a lot of things that these three went through that the other two, the youngest ones, probably don't remember everything, but there is a lot that Kallye remembers. And bless her heart, she went through a lot. They all three did. We've had our kids taken away from us through the state of Oklahoma, and we've got them back. And when we did get them back, we made all kinds of promises and things that we were going to do better, and we turned right around and fell right back into it. But I'm going to tell you something, long story short. The day that God saved my life, I was in a place, an apartment. I have pictures and all kinds of things of that apartment. Every time I go to Wilburton, I drive by that apartment and sit out there in the front in the road and just look at that, because there is so much right there. Because that apartment, I can tell you that sitting in that green chair in the corner of that apartment, that is where the Spirit of God absolutely came to me that afternoon. Absolutely, in that apartment. And no electric, no utilities whatsoever. It was dark in that apartment. Had the curtains pulled. Never forget it. Had all three of the kids sitting on my lap. And Crystal was in jail at the time. And I never will forget how God just came in that room that day. The Spirit of God just began to deal with me. I began to cry out to God, and I said, God, if you will help me out of this, I will do anything you want me to do. I promise you. I promise you, I will serve you and I will live my life completely for you. And I had no money. Most of you know this. You've heard it before. But I had no money to get her out of jail. I had been to every place that I knew would give me money. Any other day, I could have went to any of these people and got money. And I couldn't get none. I couldn't get it. And I know now, looking back, that God was putting me in a place between a rock and a hard spot because He was about to talk to me. He was about to come to me. And had anybody give me some money, I would have took another direction. And I believe that. I believe that. I was mad. I was very furious at the people that wouldn't help me. And I had went back home. I had sat down and kind of more or less just began to sulk. And didn't have no idea what was going to happen. And that day when God began to deal with me that afternoon, I just began to cry out. And I said, God, whatever you want, if you'll just help me, if you'll just save me, save my family. I want my wife saved. I want her to feel the same thing that I'm feeling right now. And I said, if you are truly here and you're truly dealing with me right now, let my wife be able to let me get her out of jail. And it was not, and I kid you not, it was not 30 minutes. There was a knock on the front door of that apartment. I opened the door. It was a lady that lived around behind us in the apartment adjacent to our back room. And she, I can't even remember her name. What was her name? Debbie. Her name was Debbie. And she knocked on the door. I opened the door, and she said, hey, they just called me from the jail and told me to deliver a message to you that if you would come pick Crystal up right now, they was just going to OR her out. No bond, no nothing. Earlier that day, I couldn't get her out. That's why I was trying to hustle for the money. The money, I can't remember. It was way up there. But anyway, I was trying to hustle up the money, and I didn't have to have no money. God pulled a Paul and Silas on her that day. Got her out of jail. And when I pulled up to get her, she was standing in the front of that jail, standing down at the bottom of the out the front door by the parking lot. She was crying. I opened the door. She got in, and whenever she got in, we both was looking at each other. I didn't know how I was going to break the news to her because I said, I don't know how I'm going to tell her that I'm fixing to change my life and that I want to be saved. I want God to change me. And when I looked at her, I said, I need to tell you something. And she said at the same time, I got to tell you something. And I said, what do you got? And she said, while I was in there, God began to deal with me, and we got to change our life. So I want to tell you something. God did it twice, on two people at one time, at one moment. God changed us, and I will never forget that day, February the 11th, 2002, on Southeast A Street in Stigler, Oklahoma. I take you to the house, sitting in the floor, laying in the floor, and the pastor from this church at the time, he was the pastor of this church. He came. They called him. He came, met me at Stigler at my grandma's house. We prayed, and God absolutely, I promise y'all, I've never had another drink. I've not done anything since that day. God absolutely miraculously delivered me. That's why I know He can do it. That's why I know He can do it. When you want it, when God gets you in a place, and I'm going to tell you something. Everybody in this room, if you have a praying mama, praying grandma, or had a praying mama, or anybody praying for you that has ever prayed a prayer for you, you better set yourself up and get ready, because I know that God will answer prayers, and I know that God will arrest you, and whenever the Holy Ghost arrests you, you will come to the place, because God has a way of getting you in a place where He says, hey, now all you can do is look to me, because I'm your answer. And I will tell you something, 19 years, and I do want you to know one thing. It has been the best. I've had troubles, I've had ups, I've had downs. There's been times that I have absolutely felt like, man, I just can't do it. I can't go on. I've had all kinds of things and that has happened, but I do not ever want to go back to where God brought me from. No matter what, God has always been faithful.
My turn. I'm going to start off with Kallye because she's going to finish this up. At 13 months old, Kallye was diagnosed with rhabdomyosarcoma, and she had a tumor come up on her back, and it stuck out about the size of a baseball. We took her to Muskogee to a doctor, and we took her to Dr. Robinson. He transferred us to Oklahoma City. We was there for a couple of weeks. They was going to fly in a doctor from Germany to do this surgery because they wanted to go ahead and biopsy it before they sent us on to St. Jude's. And they told us it was rhabdomyosarcoma. So anyway, we get prepared for this surgery. And I wasn't on drugs at the time. Heath had been, but I hadn't been. We get prepared for this surgery, and they take Kallye in. And the night before, my mom and dad was with me, and I was there, and none of us was saved. I mean, I had started kind of going to church, but my dad was there. And the night before, he gave his life to the Lord before Kallye's surgery. They take her in the next day. They tell us it's going to be about a 4-hour surgery, 4 to 6 hours. They want to check it all out and see what's going on and get the pathology reports sent off, and then they would let us know, and, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, they rocked on about 45 minutes, and here they came. And we're all sitting out in the waiting room, and Danny Oliver's there. He was actually the pastor of this church, too. So we've had a connection to this church our whole life. Danny Oliver was there, and he had prayed with us, and they come out, and they said, I don't know how to tell you this, but where the tumor was laying is a spot, but there is no longer a tumor. Everything around it is clean. She does not have cancer. There's no cancer there. So you would think that I would serve the Lord faithfully. But I didn't. We didn't. Things rocked on. Hadley's born. When Hadley's 2, me and Heath are fighting like cats and dogs. It was constant. He tried to run me over with a car. He's beat me. I don't know what all. I couldn't even begin to remember half of it. We're so out there sometimes. And I start doing drugs because I think that's what it's going to take to save my marriage. If I start doing drugs, then maybe we can do drugs together and things will get great. Maybe we can do drugs together and he'll love me a little more and he'll settle down on the beating me. Maybe we can, work it out to where at least we can get along or something. So we're about 2 months into drug use, and I start IV drug using immediately. And then it just goes from there. I think I got worse than Heath. I go to jail. I want to talk about some times when I wasn't in my kids' lives because Kallye's going to finish up. So I want to talk about a time I was in McAllister jail. I don't even know where my kids was. I wound up in jail over a check that was like 8 years old, and I didn't even know I had a warrant for. I wound up in jail at McAllister. I get out. My brother comes and gets me. We fight. I almost fist fight him all the way back to Kenna because I'm ready to get my fix. I'm ready to get high. And literally, this is the reason that we have problems today, because he'll tell you, she about beat the tar out of me on the way back from jail one day. So I run off, and I don't know where my children are. I haven't talked to them. I haven't been in contact with them at this point. I haven't seen them. Heath had them. Heath's mother had them. I come to Kyoto, and I hang out a couple of weeks, and I wind up staying up for 16 or 17, I don't know how many days, but anyway, I wound up sleeping like 6, and I still don't know who took care of me those 6 days. I still don't know who changed me, because from what I understand, I messed and everything all over myself, so I have no idea what I was doing, where I was at, who I was with, nothing. I don't know. I don't know how I eat. I don't know how I drink. I don't know nothing. I know Alan Lovell from Kenna. Thank God he's my cousin. I wound up at his house somehow. I'm almost positive Shane or somebody drove me over there. But anyway, I wound up over there. So these are just the times that I'm telling you that I don't even know where my kids are. Addiction is horrible. It's horrible, and you don't care. You don't care where your baby is. All you care about is your next fix. There was times that we didn't have no electricity, no water, No, they didn't have clothes to wear to school. Kallye would dress herself. She would dress Jackson. She would dress Hadley. She'd get them up. She'd take them to. She'd get them prepared for the bus. I mean, we lived in a trailer house. The roof was caved in. We lived in one end of it because we couldn't get electricity. The ice storm had destroyed the whole house, so we run an extension cord across the yard to my grandpa's house just to have a fan because it was burning hot. And we'd have an ice chest that we would keep a few little things to eat in. But again, Kallye was taking care of the other two, so thank God Kallye was in her right mind. She's always been a mama because I wasn't there to be one. And these are the hard times. I mean, this is the real raw times in my life. And there's times that she's just really had to go above and beyond for her brothers and her sisters. And you think, when you do come out of addiction, you think, oh my gosh, how am I going to be a parent? I've did all this horrible stuff. What am I going to do? I'm going to tell you the best thing to do. Be a parent. Be a parent. Bust that butt. Just because you didn't give them what they need don't mean you have to pamper them, because they'll be just like you. Take care of them. Guide them. Lead them. It may be hard at times, but you can do it. Because I look back now and I think, thank God I got saved, and I started trying to be a mama to my kids, although it took me about 5 years to come to myself. There was still 5 years after I got saved that I would sleep in. I couldn't wake up. It was hard for me to get going during the day. It was hard for me to think. It was hard for me to function. And thank God there was Kallye. And I'm going to kind of leave it right there for her, because that's just kind of the short end of the stick, but due to time, I'm going to let her finish up, because really this is a side where you see mom, dad, and child, and that's the effect that we're going after, because there's hope after addiction. There's life after addiction. There's love after addiction. Things can be restored after addiction. And you're fixing to see that my best friends are my kids. I busted their butt when they got in trouble, but they're still my best friends. I tried to tell them every time they would leave the house, I'd tell them no drinking, no drugs, no sex, no smoking, no anything that would get you in trouble. Absolutely not. And if I catch you doing it, I'll never let you drive. I'll never let you have a phone. I'll never give you another dime. And I will send your butt to jail. Kallye was in 3rd grade and she stole a little toy off of a backpack. And guess what? Her daddy called the sheriff's department. She went to the Stigler jail and she got to look inside the jail. Because we realized where we was at, and I do not want my kids there. I don't want them there. But yet she loves me. And she's my best friend. Her and Hadley. Where's Hadley? Right there. Yep, I love them. Jackson, he doesn't remember a whole lot, and Hadley don't either, and I'm thankful for that. I'm very thankful for that. But now you're going to get to hear Kallye's side.
I'm nervous. You can turn me down. I feel sick. All right. So they said y'all that recovery's the hardest people to talk to. So y'all better help me, Lori. You gotta help me. All right. So I have on here that my parents began using drugs when I was about 4 years old. I remember times when they were strung out. I don't remember a whole lot because we were with Al and Deb and everywhere in between. But I was going to tell you a couple stories and then just kind of talk about it. But I remember a time when my parents were messed up. We had like a old maroon van, and Dad had me up in the front window of it because he swore there was people up on the roof. And I'm like, I don't know about that, but anyway, so I tried to convince him there wasn't, but there wasn't no convincing of that. We kind of laugh about it now because it's kind of funny, and that's just how we cope with things. We laugh about it. So it wasn't a good time, and it isn't really a good memory, but we just joke about it. Another time I remember was when my parents had gotten into a fight, and we were at school, and I think we were in a van then too. Mom's always had a love for vans. Uh, and Dad come to the school and picked it. I think, was it just me and Headley? Me and Headley? Yeah, picked us up from school, and all four tires were slashed. Um, so Mom's kind of psycho. But all four tires were slashed, and we drove until we couldn't drive anymore. The tires weren't even there, nothing. Then we got out and walked, and I'm the oldest, so I was walking, and the kids were getting carried. But it was a dirt road, and I remember we got to this house, and I think the guy called the cops on Dad. But anyway, we ended up getting picked up. But that's one of the times I remember. I remember a couple fights they've had, actually more than a couple, but they would fight, and when Dad blows his top, it's like he blows his top. So it wasn't ever really good. We would cry all the time, every time they fought, and then when we cried, he was even madder because it hurt us. I don't know. And then another time is I remember when DHS took us into custody. They had kind of talked to us. I'm going to watch Pam because she told me to watch her. But they had kind of talked to us and told us what to expect, and I don't know what was going to happen, and that we would be gone for a little bit, and they'd get us back. And I guess we didn't really understand it. And then after they dropped us off, I think they got to sit there with us for a little bit. And so they sat there with us for a little bit. And it was like a toy room, every kid's dream, but it really wasn't that. So we got dropped off in the room, and then I remember when they left, we was upset, and we were crying and didn't want them to leave, and they were crying, and we didn't really understand it. We didn't know who was picking us up, where we was going, whose house we was going to have to stay at, and I didn't really understand the system really till after I started working there. And so I got my job at DHS, and I remember I went to child welfare side, and I went in that room, and it's set up just like it was 20 years ago. It's like deja vu, and it brought back memories, but it wasn't really, I don't know, I guess I just kind of reflected back on where we come from, but luckily Alice, I think, was the one that picked us up, and we stayed with her. And now that I realize, I couldn't imagine ever losing my kids and my kids not knowing where they were going, or having to leave my kids there. So I just wanted to kind of tell some stories, because I want you to know that even though your children may be old enough to remember, Lee, I'm sure she remembers some stuff, it doesn't mean that there can't be forgiveness. It doesn't mean that there can't be restoration. And just like addiction masks your feelings, it masks your children's feelings too. Forgiveness may not come overnight, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. And another thing I have in here is how real that Mom and Dad's always been with us. If we had questions or telling their testimony, they didn't take us out of the room. They didn't not let us go. They've always been real with what they went through and what they dealt with and the result of it. And I think that's had a lot of impact on us because Jackson's the wildest one out of all of us. But we've never really got too far. I remember one time Mom had let this girl move in with us, and I was running around with her, and we went to this house, and they were smoking weed. And I was like, I'll try it, And so I tried it, and I was like, I don't know what this is doing. And they was like, no, you got to hold it in. And I'm like, oh, no, because I know as soon as I hold it in, it's going to kill me. But I think that's because of them. They had me scared. I was like, woo, can't do this. um, that's the only time I've ever tried that. But, and that's just like sex. When I was in high school, I'm like, I can't have sex. I'll get pregnant. And telling my dad I'm pregnant at 16, it won't cut it. It won't cut it. So it won't be good for me, him, or the kids. uh, but anyway, they've always been real with us, and consistency is something else I have in here. When you change, I encourage you to be consistent. Every time you get clean and you have your kids for 5 days and then you go back out and you don't have them for 2 months, your kids realize what's going on. They know. They're not stupid, and you're stupid for thinking that they don't know what's going on. And I have in here to show your children the change. Don't go back. It's easy to be resentful when your life's weighed down by trauma of the past. Pray for restoration. Pray for God to cover every hurt that your children have and will experience. Jesus changes everything. Every time you fall, your children are affected. Every inconsistency in their life affects them. Just because you pass a UA doesn't mean that you're okay or you're recovered. Without Jesus, it means you're making it. You don't have to just make it, and you don't have to struggle and battle with addiction every day. You can change. And your children knows what the change is. And I have in here to trust God to turn all of the resentment into restoration, and forgive. I encourage, if any of y'all have parents that's been addicted, forgiveness. It really is a beautiful thing, and it can be. And then I have Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Mom wanted me to give altar call, but I'll go ahead and let her do that.
Jesus brings restoration all the way around.